Today, I'm going to show you how to retouch environments in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning fun. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to retouch an environment in Photoshop. And you might be like, what? I thought retouching was only for people. Well, turns out you can do this for environments too, and it can make a huge difference in your photos. In this video, we'll show you how to identify and remove distractions from an environment. We'll also show you which tools work best in different situations. We'll cover the brush tool, the healing brush tool, clone stamp tool, and selection tools like the pen tool and the lasso tool. We got a great tutorial for you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop. So here's our image for today. Now you can actually download this exact photo on Phlearn.com. Just follow the link in the description right down below. So we're going to start off by identifying some of our distractions. And let's go ahead and create a new layer by clicking on our new layer icon. We're going to use our brush tool, and I'm just going to paint with like a bright pink color here. We're just going to circle some distractions. It's a good step to do this on the very beginning, so you don't like lose track of where you are, and you can kind of like see, okay, I think I can get rid of this sort of thing. Let's go ahead and go to work on it. Okay, so we're going to start off with these little hooks here up on the wall. Again, this is for like creating a more clean image, right? Like obviously if you're trying to give like an exact representation of a space, you don't need to go removing every hook, but we're just going to clean this photo up. All right, we can get rid of this little hinge here. Now, the other thing that I'm noticing is we've got two of these nice frosted windows, and this one I can see right through, and that's kind of distracting. So we're actually going to be getting, we're basically going to turn this into a frosted window as well. Okay, now we've got some stuff on the table here. We've got like a little Wi-Fi sign and some pencils and stuff like that, where you're going to remove all of this stuff. And that's going to be one of the more tedious parts, because you can see there's a chair behind there. We're going to need to replace the table and all this stuff, but we're going to show you how to do all that, so don't worry. Even if you have like a complicated area like that, it's not a big deal. We're going to show you how to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out, and we've got a giant like heating element here, so we definitely want to remove the cord. And you know what, we're just going to remove this entire thing here all the way back into there, that you can kind of see through the chairs right there. Okay, so we're going to make sure all that goes away. All right, so those are the things we're going to remove. We're also going to be brightening up the shadows because they're a bit dark in this area. All right, guys, we got a lot to do. Let's go ahead and get to it. So jumping back in, we're going to turn this layer invisible for now. I'm just going to use it as a reference guide. So we're going to start off with the easiest things, just removing these hooks. Let's go ahead and create a new layer here, and I'm going to zoom in. Now, anytime you have an object like this that's surrounded by the same color here, basically you want to use your healing brush tool or your spot healing brush tool. Let's go to our spot healing brush tool, and basically what I'm going to do is just paint right over top of these, and Photoshop is going to choose an area that's nice and clean and basically replace it for me. So getting rid of those was really, really easy. Now, if this tool doesn't work perfectly for you, grab the healing brush tool, and then you can hold Alt or Option and sample the area that you'd like. So the spot healing brush tool chooses the area for you, and the regular healing brush tool allows you to choose the area that you sample. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and zoom in. We're going to take care of this little hinge right there. Okay, so again, I'm going to use my healing brush tool. There we are. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option and sample right up here. So Alt or Option and click right there. And then scrolling down a little bit, I'm going to see a little preview. Okay, you can see wherever I hover over with my mouse, I'm going to see a little preview of what we're going to be painting. You just want to make sure to line that up because we have a straight line there, right? So do your best to line that up and then paint this in. There we go. And there we go. That hinge is completely gone. Pretty cool. So basically it's just continuing this line straight down. All right, looking good already. Now, actually, there was a couple more things I didn't even select with these. Let's go ahead and I'm going to just fill these in. There's some like little like lines and things like that on the wall as well. So we're going to use the same tool here. You can kind of see it looks like a bumpy paint job or something. Okay, so we'll just use the exact same tool here. We're going to go to our healing brush tool. I'm going to sample right over here, which is just a very nice, this is a nice clean wall. Okay, and we're going to paint right over here. And it's just going to remove any kind of imperfections that we have. Again, you want to sample the good area and then paint over the area where you want to remove any imperfections. All right, so pretty cool. Let's turn this layer off and on, and we can see already we've cleaned up quite a bit. Now, that was admittedly the easy part. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our window, which is going to basically involve replacing this window with another window. So let's start by creating a new layer. We'll click on our new layer icon. Now, a lot of the time when you're doing this in Photoshop, what you want to look for are similar elements. So for instance, I want to frost this window. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this window and basically copy it over here and just use the frosting from this window on that one. Okay, so it's not that hard to do. What we're going to do is grab our marquee selection tool and make a selection right around this window. I want to make it a little bit larger than I need. Okay, so that looks good. It basically encompasses all of this window. Now, I'm also keeping in mind that I want to use this right-hand corner as a guide for this right-hand corner here. So with that selected, I'm going to click on my background and hit Control or Command J, and that's going to duplicate that, whatever's in the selection, to a new layer. So here we go. I've got this in a new layer. Now, obviously, it doesn't really fit right over there, right? So we need to make it fit. The first thing you want to do is lower your opacity. So let's just click here on our opacity. We'll bring that down a little bit, okay, so we can see through. And now, basically, I just need to line up this corner. So this corner here from that window and this corner from this window. So let's go ahead and line those up. We'll just put them in about the same place. There we go. That looks pretty good. So now that they're in the same place, you can see just turning this off and on. Basically, the vertical line, you can see here, this line of this window, okay, is not exactly matching up with this line of the other window. So we need to skew this layer, okay? It was kind of hard to say, skew this layer. So I'm going to hold down Control or Command and click here on the corner. You can see my little icon goes to a white arrow, and this is going to allow us to skew. You can also hit Control or Command T, right click, and go down to skew. Both will do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to hold down Control or Command. We're going to click on this little point right there, and you're going to see I can just basically I can just take this wherever I want, right? We're skewing this layer. But obviously we don't need to do stuff like that. What we want is to line it up with the other window. There we go. So we're basically just changing our perspective a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good there. And I can do this with this corner as well, just making sure, again, we're in perspective. We want to make sure we match the perspective there. All right, that looks pretty good. So our bottom line matches pretty well, and the right side matches well as well. Now, I don't have to worry about the rest of this photo here on the left-hand side or the top. I'm not going to worry about that because we don't have a window frame that's even visible. So let's go ahead and hit Enter. Okay, so we've got one window kind of like placed over top of the other window right now. Now what we need to do is mask it in to make sure it's only visible right over top of the window pane. So jumping back into Photoshop, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and bring this layer all the way to the very top. We're going to bring our opacity to 100%. There we go. And now I'm going to put a black layer mask on this layer. It's going to make the layer invisible temporarily. So let's hold Alt or Option and click on my layer mask, making a completely black layer mask. You can see there. And this layer is now completely invisible. So I want to define the area where I want this layer to be visible. And I'm going to do that with my Polygonal Lasso tool. So let's go to our Polygonal Lasso tool here. Okay. Now you'll notice this edge is a little bit, it's a little bit feathered, right? It's not super sharp. It's a little bit out of focus. So we want to make sure we have some feathering turned on there. Now a good way to see, let's go ahead and make just like a test selection there. And I'm going to hit the Q button on my keyboard. And that basically turns the selection into a quick mask. And the reason I do this is just to look at the edge of my selection and see, like, does it match like the feathering here? Does it match with the feathering in this photo? And this is a little bit sharper still, right? So let's hit Q again. I'm going to just bring the feathering up to 4 pixels. Okay, so just type in 4. There we go. Let's make a selection and hit Q again. And we can see, yeah, that's starting to actually look pretty good. Let's bring it back down to 3, and I think that's going to be perfect. All right. 3 pixels, and just make a little selection there. Hit Q. That allows us to see our edge. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, So now what we're going to do is basically, we're just going to click a few times. I'm going to click inside of this, there we go, inside of this little bounding box as well. We're going to come straight down here. All right, there we go, and right across as well. Okay, so we basically selected an area that we want this window, remember the window that we just got from over here, that's where we want it to be visible. So on our layer mask, simply go to Edit and down to Fill, and we're going to fill our layer mask with white in that selected area, making the window visible just right there. Okay, so check that out. Now we have a brand new window right there that looks just like our other windows. So we basically just plopped in a nice frosted window, which is really, really cool. Now let's go ahead, we're going to create a new layer here right above there. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. So on your new layer, let's use our clone stamp tool, S for the clone stamp tool. We're going to sample right here, and I'm just going to paint this in just a little bit. There we go, to kind of remove that little area there. All right, and we are already looking pretty dang good. Bet you didn't think it was that easy to replace a window. All right, let's go ahead and group those layers and turn that off and on. So we can see we completely replaced that window, cleaning up the image. Already it's much, much cleaner. So we just took care of the window, and you guys can see copying the window from one area to another one is a great place to replace anything in your photo. Oftentimes you'll have duplicates that you can use to your advantage. Okay, let's go ahead and take care of the heater on the bottom of our photo. So looking at the heater here, let's go ahead and close up this group here. Looking at this heater, we basically have a cord that's, you know, like kind of over here attaching to our heater, and then we have this giant heating element here. Now a cord, something like this, that's not really that difficult to do. Honestly, you can just grab your healing brush tool and you can just like sample here and paint over a cord. You know, stuff like this, that's really pretty easy to do. But when it comes to the majority of this heater, you can't just use the healing brush tool. The reason is, if I sample over here and start painting away, it's like, okay, well, this might look okay up until here, but we're going to come to a point right about here, okay, where it's like, ooh, this just kind of turns into like a blurry mess. And the reason is because a healing brush works by like blurring things together, basically. Okay, so this is really not going to work for this certain situation. So what I'm going to do instead is we're actually just going to use the brush tool, and I'm going to totally just paint over this area, which you're guys going to see how powerful the brush tool can be. So jumping back into Photoshop, our big goal here is basically to make all of this area look like it's wall, okay? So in this case, it's not too hard because it's all the same color. So we're going to create a new layer. I want to hit B for the brush tool, and then I want to make sure we're painting with a large soft edge brush. So go ahead and right click here. Our size is about 1,000 pixels in this case. A nice large brush, and the hardness is at 0. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and that's going to allow me to sample this wall color. So Alt or Option, I'm going to sample this color and paint right over here. Now I'm not at all worried about being like painting in the lines here. I'm going to use a layer mask to make sure that everything like blends together well in just a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out. You want to make sure that all these blend together. So if you need to bring your opacity or your flow down a little bit, you just want to make sure that everything kind of blends together and that what you're painting actually looks like wall. Okay, it just looks like it kind of flows smoothly from one area to another one. That's basically the goal here. All right. Cool, and again, I'm not really worried about the bottom part of this at all. And you know what, I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit of this other wall area here on the left-hand side as well. There we go, just paint it up. I can always use a layer mask to make sure it doesn't show up over the top of like chairs and things like that, okay? So basically just kind of painting a new surface in here. And again, just holding Alt or Option to sample and then painting over different areas. All right, that looks pretty good. So we have our wall area, and I'm going to do the same thing right over here because we have some wall area that we need to cover too. So let's just sample this little bit of wall area there and paint right over top of this chair. So why would I like overpaint this area? Well, I did that so we'd have like a really nice smooth transition of color from one color to another. Because this color here, let me just grab a like very hard edge brush. This color here looks like this, okay? And this color here looks like this. They're not like, it may look like they're similar, but there's a transition of colors here, okay? So that's why I overpainted, so that transition can be nice and smooth. So now all we have to do is go in and mask out like the chairs and things like that, revealing just the wall behind it. Going back in, I'm going to reduce our opacity a little bit here. There we go. And I still need to keep this little floorboard in here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab our lasso tool. We'll go to the polygonal lasso tool and keep feathering it 3 pixels. That looks good. Now let's go ahead and click over there, and I'm just going to bring this right over top of here. There we go. And I'm looking at this line. We just want a nice continuing line there. All right, cool. And we're going to go up and right around there and all the way back to here. So basically, we're just defining the area where we want this layer to be visible. So I'm saying don't be visible outside of the selection that I just made. Okay, so let's click on our layer mask. There we go, and we can turn our layer opacity to 100. You can see already we're looking pretty good. Obviously, this bottom area is going to need some cleanup, but we'll do that with a clone stamp tool. That won't be difficult to do. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and click in here, zoom in, and I want to make sure I've got a really nice selection around the bottom of the chair. So we're going to use the pen tool to create an accurate selection. Really not too difficult to do. Just hit P for the pen tool, and basically you just want to click and drag in the area that you want to make a pen path. And if you guys have any problems with the pen tool, or if you're relatively new to the pen tool, just go to Phlearn.com and type in pen tool into the search bar. You're going to find a lot of videos on how to use the pen tool. It's a really, really powerful tool. Basically, it allows you to create complex or simple curves. So if you have an area like this where we need to basically, trace out the back of a chair, instead of trying to just use the brush tool and be like, super messy with it, you can actually create a really nice smooth, there we go, a really nice smooth line. So basically, I just click and drag around the edge here, and that gives us a really nice smooth edge. We're going to right click and go down to Make Selection, and I'm going to feather this time by 1 pixel. Let's hit OK. And then this time we don't want this to show up on this layer either, right? So this time we're going to click on our layer mask. We're going to go to Edit and down to Fill, and we're going to fill that with black on our layer mask. There we go. Okay, and now we don't have to worry about the wall area showing up where the chair is. Okay, let's go ahead and lower our opacity down again. We're going to zoom in, and I'm going to go back to my magnetic lasso tool, which is really going to be really great for any time you have a straight area, okay? Just like this. All right, if you have like really nice large curves, you want to make sure that in those situations that you're actually using the pen tool. But anywhere where we have mostly straight lines, you can go in here with your polygonal lasso tool and kind of carve those areas out. Even these little screws and things like that. All right, there we go. We get that. So basically, I'm just defining the areas that I don't want this to be visible. All right, let's hit Enter. And then on this layer mask, we'll go to Edit and down to Fill, and we'll fill that with black again. Okay, so now the hardware. And notice I even discluded, like there was a little screw there. I made sure that's not going to be visible when we bring our opacity back up to 100. All right, looking good. You know what? I'm going to undo that real quick because I had my feathering up too high. So let's bring our feathering back up down to 1. We'll just do this again. All right, there we go. So again, I'm just kind of clicking around the areas that where I don't want the wall to show up. All right, so basically anything that's actually in front of the wall in the photograph. Okay, let's go ahead and fill that with black. Edit, down to Fill, and we'll go to black. There we go. Let's go over here and do the same thing. Okay, all this area here, we don't want the wall to show up there. So we're just going to fill that with black. So next we're going to take a look at this area here. Remember, we have another area here where, let's just zoom out a little bit. Basically from this little area here, we don't want to be able to see that little heater either. So I'm getting really kind of nitpicky here, but again, I just wanted to show you guys just how powerful these tools are and how much you really can do. So let's go ahead and make this selection around here. There we go, again with our polygonal lasso tool. Kind of coming in right to about there. Hit enter, and okay. So now, instead of filling this area with black, because we actually do want it to show up, I'm going to go to select and then down to inverse. So that inverses our selection, and I'm just going to paint black with a regular paintbrush on my layer mask. There we go. So when I bring my opacity back up to 100%, now we can see it's there, and I'm just going to fill this in just a little bit with the brush tool. We'll just sample that in. Perfect. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and zoom out, and there we can see basically we removed that heater from the side of the wall, and we've even cleaned it up a little bit. Let's just go ahead and use our brush tool and paint black here just to smooth that transition. So our heater is mostly gone, and I know that was a decent bit of work, guys, but now what we need to do, we're just going to get that little like strip on the bottom of the image, and it's going to look like totally perfect right here. So let's go ahead and jump in here. We're going to paint black just a little bit here to allow this to fade in with the original wall color. There we go. Now on a new layer, I'm going to hit S for the clone stamp tool. We're going to sample this area, and I'm just going to paint just like that. Okay. On this layer, we can use our move tool, and I can simply click and drag this over to the new area that I'd like it to be. Now, it's a little bit dark right now. Okay, it's not a big deal. All you have to do is go to Image, down to Adjustments, and I'm going to go up to Curves, and we're just going to use our Curves Adjustment layer to kind of brighten this up a little bit. All right, there we go. Now let's go ahead and put a layer mask on there and just kind of like blend this into place. So I'm just kind of got a soft edge brush here. There we go. All right, that looks really good. And let's go ahead and make sure it doesn't show up over top of the chair either. All right, and you could use the lasso tool here. I'm just using a brush tool because it's kind of just faster. All right, and at this point, I'd like to go a little bit faster. Okay, so there we can see, basically we've taken the floor area from this area, from one area to another, and basically just completely replaced it, which is really, really cool. All right. All right, guys, so we're looking great. The last thing we need to do is replace those pencils and the little sign on the table. Let's jump back in. We're going to create a new layer. And this time we're going to just do a little bit of a lesson here because this is probably the most complicated area here. Basically, we've got a wall, like a window behind this area that we need to replace. Okay, we've got a chair. We've got some wall area, and we have a table. So whenever you have this many layers of things that you basically need to kind of create from scratch, the best thing to do is start with the furthest back item. So in this case, we're going to start with the window right back here. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer and use our clone stamp tool to sample this area. Again, we're just going to sample another window. There we go. And I'm just going to paint it right in there and use our move tool to get it right back into place. So you can see I'm always trying to use elements from my photo if I can. Sometimes you just have to like paint things from scratch, but if you can use areas from your photo, it's just going to turn out a little bit more realistic. Okay, there we go. Let's hit enter there. So again, I just kind of warped that into place. Now we'll bring our opacity up on this. Okay, and click on our layer mask. There we go. And let's go ahead and paint black on our layer mask right over here. So again, we just want this to be just the little window part. All right. All right, I want to make sure my chair is still showing. Perfect. Don't need that little bit of the chair. Again, we're going to have to kind of like replace this chair here. All right, there we go. Now I've got the corner of the window kind of roughed in there, and that looks pretty good. Now I need to take care of this side of it. So I'm going to create a new layer. S for the clone stamp tool. We're going to sample right up here, and I'm just going to go straight down with this now. Okay, there we go. So we're kind of taking care of like one area at a time. All right, let's just move that to the right a little bit with the right arrow. Now I'm going to use my healing brush tool. Okay, we're going to sample here. Let's go to our healing brush tool, sample here, and get rid of this. There we go. That's gone now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, let's just kind of like take inventory here. All right, let's just erase this where it's covering the table. We don't need to do that. Have that be visible there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is replace our chair. All right, let's make sure that our original chair is visible. Okay, so we're going to use, there we go. I'm just cleaning things up a little bit. So we're going to take this chair and duplicate it over to the other chair. So let's create a new layer here. S for the clone stamp tool. I'm going to sample this chair, and we're just going to paint it right over here and use our move tool to kind of replace it. So let's go ahead and lower the opacity there and stretch that out. Hitting Control or Command T, we're just going to stretch this chair out a little bit and basically replace one chair with another one. Not the whole chair, just the right side of it. All right, and we'll bring our opacity up and put a black layer mask on there, and then go ahead and paint black. I know I'm moving a little bit faster here because we have so much to cover. I just want to make sure you guys can get all of it. All right, there we go. And then we'll just paint black on our layer mask right over here. Just create a little pen path to make sure the edge of the chair is really nice and smooth. Okay, let's go ahead and make that a selection. Feather that by about 2 pixels. All right. And then I'm going to inverse my selection and then just paint black, so we don't want it to show up there. All right. So basically we've just brought in a new chair. Okay. So you guys can see we're slowly getting there. We started from the very back, right? We started off with our window, replaced that here. Okay, and then we're just moving forward. We did our little wall area, then we did the chair, and now we need to do the table. So the table, let's go ahead and make sure that, all right. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up our selection here a little bit. Okay, so for the table, basically we're going to use our polygonal lasso tool. We'll go ahead and click right over here, and then click on down there and come right back around. Basically, I'm just defining the area where we want our table to be. So now that we have that area pretty well defined, let's just use our brush tool, and on a new layer, because this is the most forward thing, right? It's closest to the camera. So I want to do this last. So always start off with the things that are furthest from the camera and then move your way forward. And basically, I'm just using the brush tool here to kind of like paint in a new table in this area. So holding Alt or Option, I'm sampling some of the colors from the original table and just kind of painting them in. There we go. And I can use smaller brush strokes, and there we go, kind of imitate like wood grain here as well. It's amazing what you can do with the brush tool. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit of grain to this because you can see it's really, really smooth. So let's go to Filter, down here to Noise, and I'm going to go to Add Noise. Okay, and you can see you can just add a little bit of noise there, and it helps it look a lot more photorealistic. All right, pretty cool, guys. So I'm just turning all these layers off and on, okay, just to make sure that everything is blending in super well. And that we've completely gotten rid of everything that we want. Let's go ahead and just make sure we clone stamp the back of that pencil away. All right, pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and take care of this guy. We're going to create a new layer up there. Okay, S for the clone stamp tool, and we're just going to clone stamp away the bottom of, looks like there was like a little notebook or something like this on the table. All right, cool. And there we go, guys. We've removed both the pencil holder and that little icon from the top of the table. All right, last thing we're gonna do is brighten up our shadows, and we're gonna be done with our image. So really easy here. This is by far the easiest thing we're gonna be doing. Just go to Layer, down to New Adjustment Layer. Let's go to Curves. Okay, we're just gonna brighten this up a little bit. Now, I don't want this to affect the highlights here. I only want to affect the shadows. So let's go ahead and double click on our layer. Right here where it says Blend If in our layer style, okay, I'm going to hold Alt or Option and grab from the right to the left. And what this is going to do is basically going to make this layer disappear from the highlights, having it only appear in the shadows. So let's hit OK there. I'm going to turn this off and on, and you can see it just brightens up our shadows really, really nicely. Okay, guys, well, we're done. Let's go ahead and group all of those things. I can't wait to see the before and the after. Here's our before and our after. Wow, awesome. I want to see it again. Before and the after. Okay, guys, well, that's how we retouch environmental photos in Photoshop. So I know it's a little bit of a longer episode. We definitely got into like a bunch of detail, but hopefully you can see all the different tools and techniques you can use to clean up your photos. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone.